And just like that, somehow this chapter of Chainsaw Man has surpassed the previous chapter, which was quite the bombshell, I think we can all agree. And I don't know how he does it. Like, I gotta take a few moments to say that. I do not know how Fujimoto-sensei, the author of Chainsaw Man, how he continues to cook. Like, this man is cooking. Like, he is cooking a gourmet dish. Because this man legitimately keeps making a better chapter after better chapter after better chapter after better chapter. You get the point. I don't know how he does it. And the thing is that even when there's like not action, obviously, just the character development, the conversation between the characters, what's going on and being set up, he just one-ups himself. And just like, as I talked about in like my Fire Punch video I made like earlier last week, to the Chainsaw Man chapter review, Fujimoto really has just improved as an author. Over the years, to just his different series, to his one-shots like Goodbye Eri, etc., he has just done a fantastic job. And this chapter legitimately just showcases his level of writing and how far he has actually come. So let's get into that. So for one, obviously, Denji did not get turned into a spinal cord sword, and there was multiple directions that Fujimoto could have took this. For instance, he could have had Denji turn into a spinal cord sword. He dies, which that would mean that our MC Denji is gone, and Asa, is the new MC. Denji or Chainsaw Man would reincarnate into a new incarnation, and that's where the series would continue on from, like a new MC. But obviously he didn't do that. Another path is that Denji would have been turned into, like, a spinal cord sword, and there would have been a just continuous use of him being used as a weapon for Asa, because obviously he can't technically die. He's pretty much nigh immortal, because as long as someone revs his chainsaw, he heals back up. So there was multiple directions that, Fujimoto could go. But he took a very tame and calm route, which this is something that does need to be stated. When it comes to Fujimoto's writing, I think we can all agree that he loves doing massive bombshells. Like, with panels, when you, like, turn a panel and you see something crazy happen within a chapter, a character either can die or something else very important happens. He loves this. He absolutely loves doing this in his series. Not just Chainsaw Man, but just his series. And many of us expected something really bad to happen here. Like, Denji was going to have a falling out with the girl, for instance, Asa, and, he was not going to like her anymore, and then something was going to happen. Like, that's what we assumed. That's what I think most of the community collectively agreed on, that, this was going to put a wedge between them, and Denji might not like Asa anymore. But after what happened, their relationship is steady, and there's potential future possibility for the relationship to actually grow. And this is shocking, because one thing that I pointed out in my previous video is that every time Denji kind of comes in contact with a female character, and they're crushing on him, or he's going to get in a relationship with them, they die. they die. Like, think about it. Like, Rize, Himeno, I mean, obviously was going to get with Himeno, but, just every character he has, like, some form of intimate contact with, they just straight up die. So it's just, like, the fact that, we didn't have, like, a bad conclusion to this chapter, I was just like, okay, Fujimoto obviously is doing things a little bit differently, and I appreciate that. I really do, because, once again, devs don't make a series good. And that's something that people sometimes think, that, killing off characters automatically means the series is good. No, sometimes killing off too many characters just makes it boring, or makes it to where you just no longer care about the characters within the story, because you're just like, oh, why should I care about them if they're gonna die? And so the fact that Asa didn't die here, or, Denji didn't die, I appreciate that, legitimately. Now, let's dive in a little bit deeper into the chapter. So, first page of this chapter, chapter 118, we get to see, obviously, before we find out Denji isn't turned into a sword, you see, the whole situation with the War Devil, trying to turn him into a weapon, and you see these crows fly up. Now, I want to point something out, okay? And correct me if I'm wrong. Please do so. I'm always for getting corrected and told something different if I'm unaware of it in the comments. So please do correct me if I'm wrong on this one. But these crows, obviously, we know War Devil was like an owl or something. Like, when she possessed Asa. We know this. Birds are a big thing, but we have seen these crows appear a lot, and I was rewatching the Chainsaw Man anime and reading a few panels of, the manga of Chainsaw Man, and I remember the crows appearing a lot, oftentimes when Makima was making a move. For instance, like, if anyone remembers the iconic scene, like, from the anime recently, where Makima just starts, like, splattering people and all that, there was crows that appeared around. And it implies that Makima was using the crows, controlling them, seeing through their eyes, learning through them, etc., things around her. And I wonder if these crows here symbolize Nayuta. I think I'm saying her name right. Basically, Nayuta is the one that is the control devil new incarnation. For instance, remember when Makima died, technically the devil comes back, and the new Makima, which is now called Nayuta, which is Denji's younger sister he's raising right now, she technically has the power of the control devil. So, for all we know, these crows being here theoretically could be the new incarnation of the control devil, for instance, Nayuta, watching this little confrontation between Asa, or War Devil, with Denji. So, that is something to keep in mind. I wonder if that is implying that, obviously, we're going to have a big confrontation between these individuals in the upcoming chapter, since we do know that they're going to be meeting up at Denji's house. So let's talk about that one. So this chapter, obviously, many expected to be very gruesome, dark, etc., myself included, but it was very lighthearted. And there's a lot of setup here that really hints at things that Fujimoto wants to do with the story going forward. He can have an interesting little trope here with the characters. And to kind of explain that, for instance, Denji, he also puts his hand on Asa's head and is like, Asa, spinal cord sword. And knowing Denji, he just plays it off because, he's not the smartest guy, okay? Well, we know this. He plays this off, and he just walks away, and he's like, that's a fun way to say goodbye. I mean, this is a man that obviously, with his upbringing, being around power, he's been around some very interesting people. So, him just saying something like that, it's not out of character for him. I think that's completely fine, him just acting like that. It really 100% is in character for Denji. Now, the overall tension of that scene diffuses, and you see Asa kind of look at, the War Devil's like, hey, what the hell, what are you doing, etc., really upset, and basically, she starts to talk about why they couldn't do that, why they couldn't turn Denji into, let's say, a weapon. And they basically imply that, they don't have really feelings for Denji, they don't love him enough, which is why he couldn't turn into a sword, and also he doesn't love her, and Let's keep this real, okay? There's multiple layers to this conversation that the War Devil has with Asa, and I think this is very important to really talk about. For one, Denji, he keeps his emotions kind of always on the outside. You really kind of know what he's thinking. Even though he kind of looks like deadpan right here, Denji is very point blank. He's blunt with how he feels. And for instance, when Asa starts thinking about it, like, it images him in her head, and how he's like, let's go on another date, let's have a proper date, etc., Denji obviously truly meant this. He has no ulterior motives. Well, the only ulterior motive he could have is more of a 18+ variety, but overall, Denji does just say it bluntly. He's a very blunt individual, so usually what he says is what he really means. So to put it point blank here, I think that Denji obviously has some form of feelings for Asa. Do I think he has romantic love? No, I do not think he does. I think that Denji, as a person, has grown a lot as a character, and, once again, correct me if I'm wrong in this if you think differently or whatever, but, thanks to the whole situation with Makima at the end of part 1, with Power as well, that was like a sister character to him, to what happened with Rize, Himeno, and just a lot of, looking back on his life, of what happened in his life already, I feel like he kind of has somewhat of a better understanding of what a relationship is. Not fully, obviously, but somewhat of a better understanding. And he kind of knows, maybe if he has feelings for someone, what it really feels like. So, does he have a crush on Asa? Probably. Does he love Asa? Probably not. Now, for instance, if she was to, just die, next chapter, he probably wouldn't care too much. He'd be a little bit upset, but that's about it. But I think that he would just move on. So I think the big point here is that Denji's not necessarily lying. And Asa, she's conflicted, because she obviously does have a crush on Denji. I think that is point blank, that's very obvious. But the reason why she has a crush on him, I think, and the reason why that's obvious, is because she's always been, antisocial, let's be honest, she's on the spectrum, and she's someone that, just has that proper communication with people. So the first person to really show her real proper kindness and just attention and all of that to her, definitely she's going to gain a crush. It's basically her first real crush she's ever had in her life. So when you see the situation, she definitely has feelings for him. But we know the reason why it didn't work. And let's get into that topic. The reason why Denji wasn't able to turn into a spinal cord sword, and this chapter confirms it, is that Denji is basically a fiend, or, he's a hybrid, so to speak. And so those abilities of turning individuals into, let's say, a weapon, does not work on Denji. So that is confirmation that no matter what, at least at this point, Denji will not turn into a weapon, unless he probably wants to. Unless, he gives up and is like, yeah, you can do it, or whatever. I'm assuming something like that. But, the point is that we get the beginning of a romantic relationship between the two characters. Because at this moment, it's two characters trying to find love for each other, or also trying to understand love, what it means to love, to have a crush and all that. Will she fall out of love with Denji, or will she continue to get more and more attached with him as the story goes on, and become more and more guilty if she tries to turn him into a weapon? And the same thing can be also said about the War Devil. I want to point that one out. The War Devil mentions she wants to go to sleep. She's tired as well, she hasn't slept well, and she also felt the same emotions and feelings towards Denji, for instance, love and romantic feelings. This implies that as Asa continues to fall more and more in love with Denji, you'll have the War Devil fall in love with him as well. That's definitely what this entire segment of the story implies. And basically, as it continues on, the War Devil might find more emotion, more connection with humanity, and might eventually be tamed. Basically, someone that isn't outright just wanting to end all of humanity, etc. A more calm devil, so to speak. And I think that'd be very interesting, because war gods or war entities within stories or mythology, they are technically kind of on the side of humanity. Yeah, they love conflict. Yeah, they love war. Yeah, they love fighting. But they still are kind of for humanity's interest to a certain degree. And I do wonder, because of that, if Denji or Asa continue, War Devil's going to have feelings for him, and I feel like War Devil won't actually want to kill him, or Chainsaw Man in general. So that's food for thought. Now, going a little bit further into this chapter, something I do want to talk about is the fact that we're going to get to see Denji going to his house. And obviously, Asa's going to go there. And this is going to give us a much-needed status update on Denji's life. We're going to learn a lot about what has happened with the time skip to, Nayuta. For instance, that is the new incarnation of the Control Devil. To potentially maybe if a new version of the Blood Devil, aka Power, is around, etc. We're going to learn a lot of details. We're going to get to see how Denji is living life. Like, for instance, now that Aki is gone, and obviously he was someone that cleaned up a lot, he did a lot of the stuff around the house, how is the situation in the house? That's a really good question. Like, is Denji cleaning up? Is he actually cleaning, or is he letting it in a pigsty? Is Nayuta keeping him in check and telling him to clean, since she's technically like a younger sister, but also technically the Control Devil? Is he having to make sure everything stays in line because of her? There's a lot of things to really wonder about. And he even says that there is house rules and you'll die, so it implies someone has put house rules there. Who is he really living with? We know he's living with, basically his little sister, Nayuta, but is she the one that puts the house rules in check? Or is he just following them because he put those house rules? So there's so many questions, but we're going to get a lot. We're going to get a lot of detail of Denji's life, and I'm excited for that. It is honestly extremely exciting to see, because we haven't gotten an update in him for so long. So, yeah. Looking forward to the next chapter. But, I guess I'll leave this video at that for now. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed my content, and you enjoyed this video, and I entertained you, and you want to see more Chainsaw Man content from me, or other series, do leave me a like and subscribe down below. With that, be safe, stay healthy, Chibi out.